Board of Trustees regular meeting for August 26th. I'm Vice President Kat Dooley, sitting in for our President Kathy Crawford because she's on vacation. So I'm going to ask that we all stand right now and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Really awesome participation. Thank you. This is actually my first in person because I missed our last one. So I'm happy to be here and see people in person. Now I'm going to ask that Trustee Bartlett do our roll call, please.
Trustee Javari? Present. Trustee Dooley?
Present.
Trustee Mitchner?
Present, thank you.
Trustee Wood?
Present.
Trustee Yu?
Present.
Trustee Bartlett is here. We have 6 here, one absent.
Absent excuse, yep. Thank you. And right now I'd like to have an entertaining of the approval for the agenda. Pages 1 through 5. Yep. Go ahead, Trustee Commissioner.
Yeah, I just, I had one note on that, if that's okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I was wondering if, I definitely want to approve it, so I will eventually, but I just wondered if I could, during the second comment, if I could reserve that last space. So like when public comment's all over, I am able to say something at the end of the public comment. I want to make a public comment, but I don't want to supersede community members that are here.
Sure. I don't see why there would be an issue with that, so I think we can add that.
Okay.
Is that, yeah? I don't think that breaks rules, so, yeah, totally.
I've done it before.
Okay, yes. So, just for everybody's benefit, after the second public comment, Trustee Mishner would like the floor. So that's the addition to our agenda tonight. And with that amended addition, do we have an approval or a motion to approve?
Yeah, just one other comment.
Sure.
Under the roll call, we probably should take off the pursuant to the State of Michigan Open Meetings Act, so,
Oh.
for future meeting.
Yeah. So for everyone's benefit, it's the clause that we were reading when we were full virtual. That's what Trustee was referring to. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve the agenda is amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Roll call.
Do we still do roll call?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's do a roll call then.
Member Dooley?
Yes.
Trustee Mitchner?
Yes, please.
Trustee Wood?
Yes.
Trustee Yu?
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes aye. Trustee Chair Curry?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries.
Motion carries.
And now it's the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes and the claims and warrants. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? No? Okay, seeing none, I'd like a roll call, please.
Trustee Mitchner?
Yes.
Trustee Wood?
Yes.
Trustee Yu?
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes aye. Trustee Chair Curry?
Yes.
Trustee Dooley?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, great. And now we're at presentations. Director Farkas?
So Trustee Yu and I had the opportunity to meet up with our Friends group in July when they had their annual meeting. And I have invited Sue Johnson, President of the Friends of the Novi Library, to join us this evening so that she can share with you the year in review and also do a check presentation. So Sue, that's okay. Come on in. She forgot the check. Oh, it is fabulous. That's okay. You can just tell us the amount.
I'm so prepared, I left it in the car rather than take it in the.
The check's in the mail.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Can I plug in here? Photo, so we do have a photo. A very nice photo, yeah. Is this gonna come up?
It should. Let me make sure.
You're getting some technical help.
So, Frank, my apologies, because I didn't think we had a presentation. I'm sorry. I mean, I thought it was just a yes. I thought it was just, going to be talking. But she comes more.
So it's 8:26. Those are okay.
Yep.
All right, and let's. Okay, there you go. And then you can just hit the next slide over.
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me to come and speak to you. We've certainly all had an interesting year. And a year ago, we really didn't know what to expect. We've been closed for 3.5 months. We had had no revenue from the Book Nook. But on the positive side, July 6th of a year ago, we were going to open back up, and Julie was kind enough to say we could open up the Book Nook as well. So we were ready to go. Some of us, like myself, would take anything to get out of the house and do something regular. And luckily, there were 5 of us who were willing to do that, to go in July with our masks and our distancing and sort books and go in and collect honor box money. So it all worked out very well. What we had promised last year, we were conservative, knowing that we could not predict how many weeks the library would be open. So we estimated $10,000 for annual contributions, cutting that way down from what we normally do, and $12,275 for wish list. As it worked out, through some finagling and some changing things around, we ended up spending $8,500 on annual contributions. We did a lot for raising the reader group. That was great. We had music programs that are now taking place this summer. Of course, summer reading was still held virtually, and community reads was virtual, so we supported that. As far as the wish list, all of the baby stuff in the library just wasn't going to happen, but we did bought a lot of stuff for Sizzling Summer giveaways with our logo on it, so people would get out there and know the library was great. We did some makerspace things. There's a new modeling system that they bought. Lakeshore Lending Library, we put money towards some of the future giveaways for the programs that would be held there. And then we did Grab and Go, which is really neat. Mary just gave me this one. You can make your own book. It's the cutest thing. Once upon a time, library logo on the back, put pages in, bind it. We love the iCube. It's really neat. So we put quite a bit of money toward Grab and Go, which you can just register online, walk into the library, up to the desk, and get your project, take it home and do it. So that was really great. The Book Nook opened on July 8th. We had 5 volunteers who I'm ever grateful, myself and 4 others, who were willing to come in and sort through mammoth piles of books. Because what did people have to do in the pandemic but sit home and sort through everything in their basement and pile it into boxes, and then the Salvation Army wouldn't take it. No other library in the area was open. So they would take it, and everybody would say, oh, the Novi Library will take books. So we got them. We ended up making over $16,000 in Book Nook during a week where we had 10 weeks where we were not open. And during the same period, because we got so many books and so many of them we couldn't sell, we managed to make $12,000 for thrift books. So it was a great year. Ended up being a great year. Okay. So this is kind of how our revenue went. It's kind of interesting over the month. So in July, we started off slowly. People were coming back in the library a little bit, but they weren't real comfortable with it. August, we went up to $1,000, which is about $250 a week. September, $1,500. October, $2,000. And then guess what? We hit November, shut down. 2 weeks in November, we shut down all through Christmas. In January, we opened up again. another 820 in January, because we just had a couple weeks, but look at the figures since then. We're a fairly good draw. People want to come in, they want to buy books that they don't have to return in 3 weeks and feel guilty about the whole time they're reading them. And we love that. It's really good. So we have just recently been having some fantastic numbers for the situation, because a lot of people still aren't comfortable getting out. Membership, the community was great in supporting us. 6,400 in membership. The prior year we'd made 68. I mean, it was a minimal drop. We did lose some members. Some people just got hit hard. We lost one of our corporate memberships, which we were very sad about. He'd been a very long time member, but he ended up having to sell out to a bigger group. We lost 38 members, got 35 new ones, although 20 of those were free memberships from a raffle. We tried to do everything we could. We did get the $10,000 grant from Oakland County for nonprofit COVID-19 economic impact grant. Try saying that real fast. Donations were about the same as last year, 1,300. When people got their COVID checks, actually, if they didn't need them particularly, they would send donation money to us, and that was very nice. I don't like pads. Oops, I'm way too far now. All right, now we go. So this is how our membership lays out. We have about 80 individual. They pay $10. 38 family memberships, 30 $30, 50 $28 of those, $100 benefactor memberships, 24, $200, three, and we have one local business that gives us 200. So actually, 58% are individual or family, and 42% pay the 30 and above, and that's really great. That's why our numbers are so good with membership. So looking forward, and before I look forward, let me just say that it has been, it's been a very interesting year, and we thank Julie for keeping us in mind, because she always included us, whatever she thought about. Last year in September, when they wanted to do some music concerts outside, Paradise Park provided the venue. We paid for the musicians, and people for the first time could get out. They could come together. The 6 feet distancing was maintained between the tables. The musicians pretty much had to stay in place, but it was something people could do. You could order drinks, you could order food, and it was just a very, very nice opportunity. So we got to do that. We've continually through the year, I'd say the first 8 months, there were just 5 of us Friends members who were in doing the actual work of sorting through all the books, getting them on the shelves in the book Nook, and emptying our honor box. But now we're getting people who want to come back. So we are going to begin after Labor Day. We're going to have sellers back for the first time in the book Nook. We're going to be getting donations at the front door again, and we have our fingers crossed on that one. And we've got some plans for fundraising for the coming year. Just as an aside, I'm also associated with Friends of Michigan Libraries. Somehow they got me on the board, and now I'm vice president, and no, that's all the farther it's going to go. But as you look around Michigan, as I associate with them, we are just so very different. So many libraries closed immediately. The librarians wouldn't even consider reopening. They didn't want to deal with the sanitizing issues and issues with staff and keep maintaining distances. Everything Julie was willing to do. But there are a lot of libraries who have never opened since middle of March. Friends groups who have not been able to reengage, have not been able to have their sales. A lot of them were creative. Some of the ones in the northern communities that didn't get hit the same way, they have opened and they're more active. But that's not typically the case. We're by far an example for everybody. So hats off and thank you, Julie. I guess I didn't, 27.8 for next year. That's all I need to say. We're doing all the annual stuff, doing some fun things, a hanging art system where we can rotate art, NPL at your door so we can mail books to people who can't get out, podcast equipment, iCube editions, so lots of fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Do any trustees have any questions or anything for Sue?
I just have a comment, not a question. Great job. It's been a pleasure to see you all consistently work so hard for our library. I think about the gala and how hard you work for that, but it's not like you use that as an excuse not to work hard this year, which anybody would be okay with, I'm sure. But you still brought in the money for our community and still just did a great job, and you have a pleasant attitude about it. So I just wanted to applaud you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. And we're looking for the gala in 2022.
2022.
We are going to do booked. And in the meantime, we hope we can do some lesser ones to kind of break up the boardom and
Awesome.
make a little money and have a little fun. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you very
appreciate everything.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
All right, so now it's time for public comment. In order to hear all citizen comments at a reasonable hour, the library board requests that speakers respect the 3-minute time limit. This is not a question-answer session. However, it's the opportunity to voice your thoughts to the library board. Citizens must state their first, last name, and address. And just to reemphasize, that's not your full address. You can just say street. You don't have to give your numbers. And is there anyone that wants to come up for public comment? Okay, go ahead. You can go up to the podium. You're welcome.
Well, thank you very much for letting me speak here, board members and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Anna Javari. I live on North Hills Drive. It's technically in Northville, but we are we use Novi Public Library, and I am a PhD candidate at Wayne State, and I've been a patron of Novi Public Library since 2007, and of course, it's an obvious matter that library is one of the pivotal aspects of a society, a community, cultural center of the community, and we rely on library for so many different things, just like we rely on a police department for safety, financial institutions, and of course, in order to have an ideal library, there are so many factors in play, broad range of factors such as building, the design of the building, the way it's lit, the way it allows people to circulate within the library, and organization, neatness, tidiness. But most importantly, the human interaction, the way the patron interact, the staff interact with the patrons. And of course, not all libraries, achieve these goals and these standards. But over the many, many years that I've been part of this wonderful, I've been blessed to use this library, over the countless observations, Novi Public Library not only has achieved these standards and has met these standards, but also has surpassed them in many different ways. Everything about it's always organized, neat, and all the amenities that the building offers, from the parking lot to many other things, but most importantly, the way the staff interact with the patrons. It's always so supportive, so generous, so kind. It's really, they are so reliable. When I know I'm going to be treated so well, I'm going to be supported, it's amazing. but which of course shows first and foremost the excellent leadership of Julie and your management and the way you guide the staff to be the way they are. But the main reason that I'm here today, the main reason is that throughout the pandemic, this cultural center not only remained a cultural center, but also, despite all the limitations, all the obstacles, all the frustrations, and nobody knew what, all the sanitizing, all the additional work, overwhelming amount of work, you could come and see the holds 10 times more. This library became affected and saved many people and affected their mental health of the community. So I'm done.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for offering that for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that's attending that wants to give comment at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we're moving on to reports. Student representatives report on page 22. Julie, do you want to say anything on their behalf? Or?
I'll take any questions. You know
Okay.
that this was written specifically from Lindsay this time because we're
Right.
waiting on some new appointments.
Okay.
If there's any questions, happy to entertain.
Do we have any questions from our trustees tonight or comments? No? Okay. Moving on. As far as president reports go, I don't have any. And so we're going to move towards the treasurer's report, which is trustee. Oh, I'm
so
sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead, trustee Mishner. Yes.
It was just a comment in regards to the president's report.
Sure.
Because there were a few things that were in the packet. I know you're not the person who did that, and I respect that.
There was some committee assignments. that
There was
changed, I
committee
think.
assignments that changed, but that's not
Yep.
what I wanted to speak about.
Okay, sure.
Actually, it was on page 28.
Okay.
Because the goal update happened.
Oh,
which is
yes,
really
that's right.
cool.
Thank you.
We don't always get that, right?
That's true. Thank
So,
you.
whenever that happens, I like to see all the nice red. But I had a comment on that. 1 second, please. Flipping my pages. So on page 28, and this is also listed in goals on page 41, it states the community listening session goal is complete. I don't know that that's true. So that's just a thought. I was wondering, how is this so if the corresponding reflection session was canceled and the detailed written board response document that was promised to be updated and included in the month's agenda by President Crawford and the July board meeting is not included?
Okay.
So that's just, I don't think it's complete yet. So I wanted to make a note on that. So the color of completion might need to change. So that was a thought. And then also on the president's report, the only other comment that I had, I like the, on page 82, I like the ad for DEI.
Yes.
Let's go to it.
I'm sorry, what is the page?
It's
82?
82 is the advertisement,
Okay.
the diversity, equity, and inclusion at NPO coming in 2021, 2022. I like that. However, I just wanted to note, we are dedicated to listening to the voices of Novi. It's a little tricky when we didn't have the listening session, so I don't know if we want to have that there now, or if we want to add that later, or if we want to revise it a little bit. And that kind of flows back into that goal section.
Okay.
So those were notes I was going to make.
Thank you, trustee Mishner.
You're welcome, thank you.
Yep, so that's right. I did watch the replay, and I did have the comment document that was supposed to be participated by all trustees that trustee Crawford did send. So I think by the September board packet, it'll be up to President Crawford, but I believe she's going to follow up with everybody to make sure you participate with your comments.
And then the only other thing on that, in addition to what you're saying, but we were supposed to have that handout in the packet because they were here if you attended the meeting in person.
And they got it physically.
Yeah, that was all.
So I have a feeling, unfortunately, my apologies to the public that that's not going to be in this particular packet. So thank you, trustee Mishner.
You're welcome. Thank
But
you.
hopefully we will have it in the September one. So thank you. Is there any other comments or feedback? Okay. Seeing none, we're moving towards the treasurer's report with trustee Wood.
Okay, for the financial report for July 2021, the approved budget for Fund 268 fiscal year 2021 to 2022, we have approved revenues of $3,244,172 against total expenditures of $3,409,700. That's a net negative of $165,528. The approved budget for Fund 269 for fiscal year 2021-2022 is total revenues of $47,500 against expenditures of $58,400, consuming $10,900 of the Fund 269. And I should highlight that this is the first month of the new budget, too, that we're reporting here. The revenue and expenditure report for Fund 268 year-to-date as of July 31st, 2021, we have revenues of $3,077,349 against expenditures of $232,227. Right now, that's obviously the beginning of the fiscal year, so it shows a net positive of $2.8 million. The revenue and expenditure report for Fund 269, as of year-to-date, we have total revenues of $1,625 against expenditures of $10,500, consuming $8,875 of Fund 269. The balance sheet report as of July 31st, the ending fund balance for Fund 268 is $5,342,263. And the ending fund balance for Fund 269 is $1,719,529. Any questions, comments?
I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
And we might not be prepared to answer these tonight, so it's really just to prepare for next time.
Sure.
So on budget 268, line item 665.266, which is SRP t-shirt sales. I don't think I ever noticed that before, so please forgive me on that. Could you expound on that a little bit, Julie?
It has been in the budget for a number of years.
Yeah.
We used to actually, we've kept it also in the budget as well.
Right.
In case there's an opportunity to sell T-shirts to the public for
Okay.
summer reading.
Awesome.
So it was done in the past and it has just remained as a line item.
Thank
We
you.
haven't done it in a while though, and with COVID and everything in the last year,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was my oversight.
No,
so
no,
That's why I
great
wanted
question.
to ask. And then also, when it comes to our cafe, which is amazing,
Yep.
and I know that it's back open,
Yes.
and I know that we have an agreement for our lease.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, and this might be for Finance Committee, it's not, something that we have to do, but I'm just kind of entertaining the thought. We don't really get any profit from the cafe, but would it be something to consider to get 2% or 5%? It's just something to consider to kind of help fund things for the library and our initiatives. But I know that we get so much more benefit and value out of that with our partnership with the school. But that was just something that popped in my head as a curiosity question.
I can report that they did go ahead and pay the actual lease up front. So for
They
this
did.
year, the 6,000 has already been added. And currently, with the finance committee, if we want to relook at the current agreement.
Okay, thank you. And then also, I know something that's top of mind for a lot of us. Right now, we're fine-free through the end of the year. So I wanted to kind of look at the budget in respect to what we're projecting in fines versus, what we're really accruing. I just wanted the trustees to kind of take a look and see the numbers, because to me, when I'm looking at it, it doesn't seem like a ton of money that we need to depend on. Obviously, we're okay right now, but I'm just putting that out there and planting that seed for future discussions to pay attention to that line item, and that one is 742.100. Also, I think as trustees, something that's part of our whole part of our role is to be out there and advocate for the library in terms of grants and promotion. And we do have that ability, not just in 269, but there's a space for books, miscellaneous grants, and and 268. I mean, if there's any resources that you come across, please send them Julie's way and the staff's way so we can help increase our budget and keep us growing. That's just something that I noticed there. And then also, I was wondering, like, just really quick, when the public, so I don't know if the public realizes, but hopefully they do, our Friends of the Novi Library is our 501c3 arm. And so what that means is people who donate to that get tax benefits if they want to take advantage of that. So if people want to donate directly to the library, which is appreciated and welcomed, but if you want to donate to friends and then specifically have that money go towards something to the library, I'm sure that you're able to do that. So I just wanted to let everybody know, because I was actually in that position for my volunteer hours at the company that I work. So that's just something I wanted to bring
Absolutely.
up for everyone's benefit. And that's it for me. Do any trustees have anything that they want to add? Yes, Trustee Shercurry.
Just to follow on, I just want to clarify, because I think you raised a good point on the fines.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an account on the revenues of 657.000, and then book fines is 742.100 on the expenditure side. These are both on pages 56 and 57. Just wanted to get a clarification as to the difference.
So you're on page 57, correct?
Yeah,
And that is 742,100?
right. And then on 56, there's 657,000.
Right. And then the revenue is, hold on one second. If you're looking at page 56, the revenue for fines, that is the library book fines, which is 657.000. That's the revenue coming in on fines that we would typically charge for late materials, okay, for the revenue. The book fines for 742.100, that is if we have to owe back an expenditure, we have to owe a library for something that is their material, maybe it gets lost or something, we actually owe that library back for that.
So that would be like something,
Like we get
if I borrow something through TLN from,
And it
say,
gets lost.
and I don't return,
Yes.
it disappears, then
Yes.
we're the,
We take care of it, we try to get the
Okay.
money back in, which will go to us, but we do pay our friends.
okay, so that's money we're
Yes.
paying out. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
I have a question on that. Is that okay? I'm sorry. Sorry, I was like, whoa. You bring up a good point. So like, we use like a ton of libraries in the area. So would they also pay us in the same way? Is
They
that
would.
like okay,
Yes,
great.
okay,
So it's a nice
absolutely.
little like,
Yep.
unspoken rule or spoken?
Well, it's a spoken rule. I mean,
Okay.
it's decided that whoever, library is responsible, they'll pay it forward. Do you know what I mean?
Nice.
And then you'll keep the money per library.
Great. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
clarifying that.
Thanks, Julie.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move forward with the director's report.
Okay. Let me get to that page there, sorry.
I know, our packet's really big.
It is, this is the biggest packet I've done.
You did a great job.
To
Thanks,
date.
Julie.
Page 67, I want to recognize some staff anniversaries for September that are coming up. Mary Robinson from our Information Services Department. A little note about Mary, she was the one who started and put the ideas forward for our iCube, and she will be celebrating 16 years. Dominic Dute is from Information Technology. Mary's a librarian, by the way. Dominic Dute is Information Technology, and he is an iCube supervisor, technology supervisor specifically with iCube, and he is celebrating 10 years this year. Yolanda Hockaday Dennis, Information Services. She is our Teen Space Monitor, so she'll be back this fall, and she's celebrating 6 years. Jill Wasson from Support Services is one of our clerks, and she'll be celebrating 2 years. And Leah Bruce, Information Services. Leah is a technology assistant and also a student, and she will be celebrating 2 years. So please help me recognize the staff and their years of service to us. Below that, I just wanted to point out that we had a wonderful visit with the new Consul General Shindov. He's in from Japan and will be on, I believe, a 2-year stay here in the States and in Michigan. Trustee Bartlett joined me, as you can see from the photo, as well as former trustee Ramesh Verma. And the reason for his invitation was because he was the first who made a connection with us to the Consul General's office. And so we invited him back for when General Shindo came into town and made the visit to the library. So we were very excited to tour him and give him an honorary library card and some gifts. I also put in what was written by the consulate office on their Facebook page so that you could see that just below. And then below that, Dina Bertenik is taking the lead, and we're going to be working with the University of Michigan, we hope. It's a project proposal, so we have not found out yet if they've chosen us, but we will be working with them on some community engagement, we hope, in the future. Beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions at this time to any of the information that I put in for you.
Thank you. Do any of the trustees have any questions?
I
Yes,
just,
Trustee Mishra.
thank you so much. I had a note about David Silberman, who I think is amazing. I saw that there was a letter of someone mentioning him and his participation in chess club and how he's been so helpful, and I just wanted to make that noted, because
Yes.
David, I ran into David, and he told me he was leaving for Clarkston
Yes.
Library, and there went our loss, but I also wanted to know what he's done for us, so I just
Oh,
wanted to say
amazing,
he's an
yes.
amazing staff member, and that's really cool that someone wrote a letter just to celebrate him.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then this was recently the first send out with the newsletter from Patron Point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And I know there's more to come.
There is a lot more to come.
There's a lot more to come.
Yes, a lot more to come.
One thing that I wanted to make note of real quick was with the project that Dana's working on as liaison. So I just wanted the community to know it is in the packet, but it is something that the staff came up with, which is an amazing idea. Hopefully we'll have more details in the future, but it falls under DEI, and we
Yes.
talked about that. Trustee Shirakuri might mention more, but I don't want to steal your thunder. But that was just something I wanted to point out. Okay, is there anything else for Director Farkas? Trustee Bartlett?
Now, I just wanted to speak out with kudos to Shannon, who is the international librarian. She is just absolutely outstanding. We were just, I dealt with a Japanese firm about 30 years ago. It was like trying to brush up on, the little conversational Japanese I remembered. She can not only do conversational Japanese, but she can read 4 different character sets. And if you've ever dealt with learning foreign Asian languages, the reading is what blows you away, because their character set is so, for somebody who does English, it's such a leap that it is just phenomenal. And she's done it with 4 different character sets, and can also read other languages, in Chinese and in Korean. So
Amazing.
just an amazing accomplishment.
Thank you, Trustee Bartlett.
Yes, thank
We
you.
are very fortunate to have her on our staff. We're very excited.
Thank you.
And she brings great energy as well.
She does. I had a really great conversation with her when I came to visit. She's awesome. But all our staff is awesome.
They are, yes,
So-
thank you.
Thank you. Well, if nobody else has anything further for Julie, I'm going to move on to our second public comment. In order to hear all citizen comments at a reasonable hour, the library board requests that speakers respect the 3-minute time limit. This is not a question-answer session. However, it's an opportunity to voice your thoughts with us. Citizens must state their first, last name, and address. And with that, I'm inviting the public to come up and speak.
Hi, my name is Sharon Trumpy. I live in Novi on Harvest Drive. I had hoped that this second comment section would be at the end of the meeting after committee reports, so that I would have a full sense of what was discussed tonight. But since it's not, I'm going to make my comment based on the fact that I don't see anything in the packet or in the agenda that indicates that there'll be any response to public concern about Trustee Chirakuri's social media posts and the implications for his service on the DEI committee. Although Trustee Chirakuri and some of our elected officials seem to find his social media posts amusing, I do not. This is not a case of Mr. Chirakuri making a post or two which was misunderstood. He clearly finds it humorous to make posts that are racist, sexist, homophobic, and transphobic. From Mr. Chiricuri's response to Ms. Hinman in the packet, Mr. Chiricuri seems to be focused on one particular post, which featured Ellen DeGeneres' disembodied head in the headline, "Ellen Likes Bush," with no link to an article, but Mr. Chiricuri's comment, "Best headline ever." If I were to accept Mr. Chiricuri's explanation for this post included in the board packet, there are numerous other posts that suggest that he is not committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion and should not be chairing that committee. If Mayor Gatz supports this trustee's appointment and President Crawford continues to support Mr. Chiricuri's appointment to the DEI chair, I presume that that means that they are both comfortable with Mr. Chiricuri's posts and comments, which include a repost that refers to Stormy Daniels and reads, "I hope she didn't swallow the evidence," or the comment in which Mr. Chiricuri calls Vice President Kamala Harris a skank. If you did not go to high school in the 1990s and are not familiar with this term, Mr. Chiricuri called our vice president a dirty slut. I can think of only one term that I would find more offensive when referring to a woman, and I find this sort of talk demeaning whether you're referring to a porn star or an elected official. Mr. Chiricuri's juvenile humor is not confined to insulting women. He is happy to post about Elliot Page, a transgender actor, while asking, "Are there two closets? If one closet is one closet inside the other closet, do you come out of the closet twice?" A man who thinks that the painful and potentially dangerous process of sharing one's gender identity or sexual orientation publicly is funny has no business chairing a committee that is supposed to ensure that all of our community members are welcome and safe at this library. I fully support the First Amendment and Mr. Chiricuri's right to say things that I find repugnant. This does not mean that Mr. Chiricuri is exempt from public scrutiny as an official, nor does it mean that his words do not reflect upon this board, on this library, and on Mayor Gatz's commitment to DEI. Thank you.
I didn't have anything as well prepared as Ms. Sharon. My name is Tia Marie Sanders. The street is Novi Road in Novi. Take this down for just a second. To just echo what Sharon was saying, I have also been watching some of the statements. Being a staff member in this climate, those types of statements and no accountability for those statements make my job difficult. It makes my space unsafe. I do not have any confidence in your ability, Mr. Chiricuri, to lead us as a board, lead us as staff. Your statements are problematic, hurtful, painful, and I don't have any confidence. You make our director's job that much more difficult when she is trying to do her best to keep us together as a staff. I don't think you understand, nor do I expect you to apologize. But I do expect the other board members to take whatever action you have. I believe censure might be one of them. Maybe removing him from the board if that's a possibility. If that's not possible, I can tell you right now, because I'm actually trembling as I think about your words, and that you have power over my job, that you make this unsafe. You make all of this last year's work to try to have diversity, equity, and inclusion, to try to have some semblance of our staff working together, to try to have some idea that we can move forward, yet you and some of the folks who support you continue to pull us backwards over and over and over again. And if the other board members mean what they say when they say they have an intentional direction for DEI, and we're celebrating what DEI is and what we're going to look like in 2022, then you cannot go forward with any person on this board that continues to make my space unsafe, my presence in this community unsafe. And while you may not think it's very important, when we as brown people come into spaces where people talk like you talk, it is unsafe.
Good evening, everybody. Betsy Bodwine. I live on Cranbrook in Novi. I have a prepared thing, but I first just wanted to echo what Sharon and Tia Marie said. I find the social media posts appalling. I don't think it's accidental. And after the last meeting, you told Audra that you thought it was just a linguistical joke to be talking about cotton picking on your Facebook. It's 2021. We are all adults. We all know that this is offensive and inappropriate behavior. The fact that you find it amusing to offend people speaks to your character. And I think that that, to me, is problematic if you're trying to be on the DEI committee. I feel like your services, if you continue here, would be much better suited to one of the other committees. Also, before I read this, I wanted to mention that I think the grab-and-go bags look great as a very positive thing. And I haven't been able to figure out how to sign up for those. I'm sure it's my thing here, but if you guys could cover that at some point, that would be fantastic. My 3 kids love anything they can take home and do. That's always super fun. So wonderful. Appreciate it very much. Okay, so prepared statement. On behalf of Novi Northville Racial Awareness, Accountability, and Action Group, we ask again that the board vote on that Juneteenth be recognized as a paid holiday, just like July 4th is. The current proposal for the Finance Committee is not acceptable. Instead of honoring this American holiday, the Finance Committee is simply penalizing employees. Thus far, the Finance Committee has not provided the very basic information for which they are responsible. What is the actual cost of adding a paid holiday? If the Finance Committee is not answering this simple question, then it seems that the HR Committee may be better suited to address whether or not Juneteenth should be a paid holiday. It is alarming, however, that the HR Committee is the only committee on which only 1 trustee is appointed. Furthermore, committee assignments were made by Kathy Crawford, who appointed only herself to the HR Committee. We believe that the HR Committee, like all other committees, should include the voices of multiple trustees, and we ask that if a motion is brought on Juneteenth this evening, that it be a straightforward motion to make Juneteenth a paid holiday. And if I have any more time left, oh good, I do. I just wanted to also say that my whole family tonight is hanging out at our neighborhood pool. Summer is winding down. I would love to be there tonight. And it really disappoints me that the things that were promised by President Crawford to be included in the packet aren't there, that we continue to push DEI to the bottom of our list and have a performative committee with people who are clearly working against the goals of the committee they serve. I would much rather be sitting complaining about the heat than complaining about racism in the Novi Public Library Board. So, again, I hope you all can enjoy your summer. I hope to do so too. And thank you for all of your work, for all of you who are participating in a beautiful way. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Seeing none. Next on the agenda was Trustee Mishner wanting to address
Yeah, thank you so
the
much.
board. Sure, yes.
I'll go to the podium like anybody else, or do you want me to stay here? What's best for you?
It's actually your preference.
I'll do as the people do.
Okay, all right.
You get to see me practice my shoes.
Yep, because she's doing it.
Still walking again.
Yep.
Okay. You can hear me better this way, but I want to be safe. All right, so my public comment, I'm sharing a letter that I wrote to the president of our board yesterday. Dear President Crawford, in June of 2021, our DEI committee had our first meeting with the newest chair, Srinavis Chirikuri. This meeting set the tone for interruptions, dismissive and offensive remarks, and also refusal to commit to and admit what diversity, equity, and inclusion meant to the person leading the team. Unfortunately, this inexcusable behavior and conduct that I have been privy to since June has not only been noted by me, but also put in writing and verbally mentioned by staff and community members to you and fellow trustees, as well as the mayor of our city. Yesterday in our DEI meeting, there was an unfortunate surge in these behaviors when the chair yelled at me when I began to engage in the conversation surrounding his multiple emails and complaint letters to our board and the mayor about things that they have found offensive. The chair opened up the portion of the meeting towards the end of our scheduled time for discussion, noting a patron that he did not agree with in her estimation of his behavior. And he said disparaging remarks about her character. He then went on to say that he himself has said nothing offensive, but that patron absolutely did say something offensive. He attempted to close the matter, and at that point I raised my hand and mentioned calmly that there was still an issue because I was offended by his remarks on cotton picking. But before I could finish my statement, he interrupted and told me that I was not offended and that actually the only people that pick cotton are in India and North Africa. I asked him if I could finish what I was trying to say before he responded as I had not finished a sentence and would like to be able to make my point. He said no and began to yell and talk about his political career and how people have misconstrued him in the past based on his Facebook account. I told him not to yell at me and that maybe he didn't realize he was yelling. He told me that he knew that he was yelling and that he has agency over his own voice. The director stepped out of the room early in this exchange, citing that she felt uncomfortable. A trustee tried to step in and explain how his behavior to me was not considerate, and she carefully navigated this, mentioning she just wants him to understand his offense. The HR person mentioned that meetings happen like this often under his leadership and that they have been unproductive. This is the same employee that has complained about his behavior in prior meetings, and they wrote the entire board a letter questioning his role and fit as DEI chair. This was the same day that another staff member said that they could not work with him, and they resigned from our DEI committee. In the HR person's letter on June 24th, we received a formal complaint as a board that this trustee continues to, and I quote, this is not my words, reduce the credibility of not only the board, but the committee that was created to address DEI issues, build trust, and develop concrete actions to address the disparity issues. The staff person noted in her letter that, and I quote, "It is my belief that he has no vested interest in serving the community of color. It is my belief that he is mismatched for this committee and does it a disservice." I agree with her estimation and brought it up in public library board meetings, and I shared that we should listen to that concern, but I was unaware of any action that had been taken to address these written concerns and complaints. This has now developed into a pattern including these behaviors of offense and unprofessionalism, but on top of that, yelling that is non-apologetic. The trustee told me that I need to put on my big boy pants when I asked him several times to stop screaming at me. He also said that he has invited me to his house for beer and to talk over these issues, and I have not taken him up on this. I told him that it is highly inappropriate to do this, that the time to discuss trustee matters is in meetings. As a public official, I have been entrusted to use my voice, and under this leadership of Trustee Chair Curry, I have been stifled, dismissed, and demeaned. This trustee is further endorsing an environment of hostility that I have made reference to as a continued practice in this board. Robust debate is to be expected in meetings, but not screaming or personal attacks that are unethical and unfocused. I hope that this can be taken into account as a formal complaint and that you as president can resolve these issues from being consistent impediments, as DEI is very important and should not be stifled. Thank you for your swift action, as I hope that we as a board can model the statement that you wrote, that the Novi Public Library is committed to ensuring that every Novi community member, library guest, board of trustee member, library staff, and volunteer is treated with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move forward with committee reports. The first committee report that's up is Policy Committee chaired by Trustee Wood.
Yeah, just a few comments. The Juneteenth item came to our policy committee. We had a split decision on it, so no decision from our committee. We did review several policies that we have first drafts, which are located in this packet here for everyone to review on this board along with the public. And we will be taking those to vote at some time at a future date. The one item here that I will say, even though it's a first draft, that will require another policy meeting before we really look at it, is we are looking to eliminate the smoking policy and wrap that into the guest behavior policy, similar to other things like alcohol and illegal drugs are mentioned in there. So we will have a look at that at a future policy meeting, and that will be a little bit more delayed, but the smoking policy is still in place. It's not being eliminated, so. That's all I have.
Do any of the trustees have any questions?
Nope, I agree with Jeff. I just had a quick question, actually, for Director Farkas on the remote work policy that we were working on, and I figured you could answer this. I didn't notice this when we looked at it in the meeting, but I noticed it like when I went over my sticky notes, et cetera, that it mentioned that the employee will allow the library director or delegate to have access to the remote working location. So I was wondering, does that, I might be off base, but does that mean that somebody could go in the home of that employee and like look at the space? And if so, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, what would that protocol be?
Well, I don't know what that protocol will be yet until I work further on it. So I know this was first draft, but I'll be happy to get that more information for you.
Okay, so it does mean that they would be able to go
They
into the
would.
house and like, look, just to make
Yeah,
sure.
we would want to have an agreement where, we'd like to come in, see where your workspace is, so we make sure it meets your needs, our needs, and so that, so just to make sure that it hits some of the bullet points that were added to the remote work policy, if you look at page 106.
Yep, choose a quiet and distraction-free working space, internet
Yeah.
connection, et cetera, yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Does that answer, or do you want me to get
That
further?
actually answers my question.
Okay.
I wasn't sure, because I didn't notice that when we were all meeting together, and I noticed it later, and I'm like, did I miss that? So.
We had talked about the bullet points being added. so
Oh, the
that's-
bullet points, yes, I didn't know that someone could come in the house.
Oh, yes. No, it was there. It
Okay.
was- Yep.
Thank you. It was my miss. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, just a question on the same thing. Yep. I want to make sure, is page 106 just a red line, proposed red line of, what, 104 is the current policy? And
The
then
correct.
106 is
The
policy?
page 104 and 105 is the current policy, where under which, as it states, is a remote work policy during pandemic, which we are still under. But this is to make it more general, so that we can use it beyond pandemic, should that go away.
Okay, I'm just getting confused because the title changes too, so.
We did, when we, the title change just removes the pandemic. The recommendation from the attorney, they used telework, but we wanted to keep it back to the language that we had already put in place, which is the remote work. Okay.
Do any of the other trustees have any questions before I go? Okay. Just real quick, Julie, for remote work, no matter what, how are we gonna kind of consider accommodations for people that, right now we're in a pandemic, but, for their health and safety during a pandemic, like, how are we gonna navigate that if you have any staff that, still don't feel comfortable physically coming in yet? I'm just wondering how we're gonna navigate that accommodation. I know it depends on position, but.
It does.
Yeah.
With us being primarily serving the public, and most positions, are required to be in the building, but we will work to see, what we can do based on, the job responsibilities and what they're asked to do. So
Okay.
it is a case by case. I'm looking for staff when they do come to me with that, for us to figure out what would work best,
Okay,
based on what we do need for
yeah.
the organization.
Thank you, Julie. I
Yep,
appreciate it.
absolutely.
Yes, trustee.
And I don't
Michelle?
know if it's helpful just to add to what Julie said, because I had a question during the meeting that might be helpful and even good for us, all of us to hear as we consider the recommendation that our committee made. But I even asked, like, if there's an employee or a candidate that might be interested in applying, if they have special circumstances where they need a Thursday off or a Friday off, that might be a selling point as well.
Yep,
So just a
absolutely.
note, that was something that we took into consideration in our meeting.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. So, the trustees have homework to do.
Thank you. Lots of reading.
Lots of reading.
And I welcome questions, please. If you do send them to me, what I can do is I'll make sure that it's answered to all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that way you have it all in advance.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Yes, trustee Sherkri?
Yeah, I saw there's a new policy called record retention policy.
Can you
Is
call
there-
out the page?
oh,
Sorry.
Page 114.
Thank you.
Now, is that initiated by some new legislation?
It's not. It's, actually, the library has been following it through the state for many, many years. We just realized that when we were cleaning up policies and looking at policies that we didn't have, that we should have one in place. So we worked with the attorney to have language. But we already follow it, and we do record retention. It's just noting it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to the HR committee. Trustee Crawford is chair, and she's absent and excused today. I don't know if there's anything that the director wants to discuss for HR committee, since our chair's not here. There was no meeting. so-
Yes, there
okay.
was not a
Okay.
meeting. Yep,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome.
And then now, it's finance committee, which trustee Bartlett is chair of now?
Yes, in the package, you have the one report that's later in the agenda. We also met to discuss various other things that will be coming up between now and the end of the year, primarily the budgeting process, which has to complete by December, which will set the budget for July 2022 through July of 2023. And also, we're starting, we'll be able to have more metrics. Our next meeting is actually going to be in October because September is pretty ugly for a number of us. And, we're going to be covering, the first analysis of fine free and, get that rolling so that we're ready to make a recommendation come the first part of the year.
Thank you.
Could I add something?
Yes, please.
At this time, just based on Trustee Bartlett talking about the budget for the new year for 22-23, if there are project ideas or thoughts that board members have, this would be a really good time to be sending me some information, because if I do need to do any research in advance, I would appreciate some time to work with my staff and also to be able to provide something that's thoughtful.
Thank you. Julie, when would you like that cutoff from us to be?
Yeah,
Because you have a lot of work when it comes to budget.
I'll
so-
be honest, I really should have it by the middle of October at the latest.
Thank you. That's what I wanted
Because
to make
that'll,
sure.
yeah, that'll give me 2 months at least to get some starts on some things.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure we had a goal.
No, I appreciate that question, absolutely.
Anything further for finance? Seeing none, I'm actually the chair currently of events marketing and fundraising, and I'm collaborating with Trustee Bartlett and Trustee Yu. I had a long report, so you can all read that yourselves. But one thing I wanted to note was that we were able, several trustees were able to go to several events. Trustee Bartlett in particular, I wanted to thank for representing us on several occasions. So thank you for doing that. But yeah, so everybody take a look at your packet. Next up is strategic planning, which is chaired by Trustee Bartlett. No report. Yeah, we haven't met yet. And building landscape committee, the chair is Trustee Yu.
Thank you, Trustee Julie. So actually, I also have a long report on, well, not anymore, but this is the Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
But on page 127, we actually met at the end of July to kind of go over some updates in terms of our technology issue we had because of the weather, our new phone system, which the RFP, I believe, went out since then.
It has.
Okay. And then the water bottle filling station that we put in a request for.
Order's been placed.
Order's been placed. The parking lot has been, parking lot project has been completed, which, if you're at the staff in-service on Friday, we heard and smelled all that as well as is going on. But it looks great.
It has been completed and striped.
Yes.
Thank you.
Library cafe, we mentioned as well, talking about the hours are expanding after Labor Day. And then our update on our cleaning contract and also coming up with some goals for the committee for the new year.
Thank you. Yes, just for everyone's benefit, all of the committees are coming up with goals.
Yes.
I neglected to mention that for my own committee, but all of us are coming up with goals to give to the director and the staff. Next up is our DEI committee, Trustee Shirakuri. Oh, did I? Sorry. My apologies, thank you. I don't want to do that. Trustee Wood, you're in charge of bylaw committee.
Yeah, we've had our second meeting to review it. We're about 2/3, maybe 75% the way through. We'll need about one more meeting and we'll be complete and come back with the recommendations to the entire board.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Wood. Trustee Shirakuri for DEI.
Yeah, thank you. So we had 2 meetings in August. So on August 5th, we met. And so just in roughly the order we went through, there had been reference to a planned diversity walkthrough that had been discussed for a number of months. At that time, I think Trustee Mitchell advised, and I think the rest of us agreed, that this is a newly created thing, and she felt our library wasn't ready for it, so we agreed to table this indefinitely. Regarding fine-free pilot, and actually I'm going to go to order. One thing that's new is we now have a staff DEI committee that's meeting monthly, which I think is a great thing. I think they're the ones who make the library happen. I think that's the best place for these issues to be really. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, oops. That's the best place for these issues to be elevated. And so we're starting to get, each month I will be getting an update from them. Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have met 2 times so far, or 3?
We've been meeting since June.
Since June, so 3 times. Okay.
We're trying to meet before your meeting so that the report can be sent and shared with you.
And then one of the things we talked, following up on the fine-free pilot, which, as you know, has been approved through the end of the year, is we asked the staff to try and identify and propose metrics to evaluate the effectiveness of the fine-free pilot, so that the board can make an informed decision when it comes time to determine whether that becomes a permanent policy or not. And this is, really in keeping with I think the sage advice of Milton Friedman, which is ultimately policy has to be judged more on just good intentions, but also on the effectiveness of what it delivers. We started the process on August 5th to try to define our goals for 2021. And then we met again on August 24th. And on August 24th, we learned about that proposal that Julie had mentioned earlier from that Dana is kind of spearheading, working with the University of Michigan School of Information under the leadership of Professor David Wallace. If we're selected, that'll have a team of graduate students assisting us in both studying and evaluating our DEI outreach strategies, as well as identifying new opportunities for outreach. So we're very excited for that. We've also decided to begin reviewing, began reviewing the DEI scorecard for libraries and information organizations that was published by the ALA in April 2021. So we feel like this could be a good chance for the library to get a baseline of where we are, and that's something we're going to be studying in detail later this month. Again, we received the update from the staff committee. And then again, following on Dr. Lee Meadows' suggestion, we've also tried to identify 3 goals that we can achieve this year. Number one, assuming we're going to get selected, is going to be that U of M School of Information assessment of our DE outreach. The second one is going to be applying that ALA scorecard, because we want to establish a baseline of where we believe we are, so that we can then go back and visit it going forward. And then the third is going to continue our efforts to reach out to the community and to get public feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments with regards to any of the committees? Yes.
Sure, I just had a quick note on the multicultural walkthrough that Trustee Sherrill Curry mentioned that I wanted to table. But what I actually, just to revise what you said just a little bit, what I actually said is that based on some of the feedback that we're getting, I think we should work on those things and make sure that we're at least having our first commitment, which was our listening session, before we rush into a walkthrough. If we really want to hear from the community, keeping that commitment was first important. So I just wanted to note that was why I wanted to hold off on it, just to be clear.
Thank you. I don't have anything at length to add, but one thing I forgot to note, and this also falls under DEI, is that Trustee Bartlett, myself, and Trustee Yu attended the staff in-service. And that was an amazing day of learning with our whole staff at NPL, and it was led by Dr. J. Marks. The primary focus was DEI, and it was incredibly informative and educational. So what I think probably President Crawford would want, if I'm so bold to speak on her behalf right now as interim, is that we probably should do a little summary to give her and the rest of the board for the September packet, if both of you are amenable to that. Okay, thank you. Yes.
I am currently collecting the surveys from the staff.
Yes.
And I will try very hard to have that data for you as well.
And we owe you that too, because we were in attendance. My apologies. I know, it's due the 30th.
I had a deadline, and so I'm hoping that I can work on that as well for you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, does anybody have anything else? Okay, we're gonna move toward matters for library board action. Item number 1 is recommendation for limited services on voting day. I don't know who the maker of the motion is. Okay. Oh, it's coming from you. Okay.
I didn't know really how to, so that's why I'm bringing it to the full
Okay,
board.
I'll read it out. I'll read it out in total. I wanted to offer the floor to whoever the maker of the motion is, but I'll read it on your behalf. The recommendation for limited services on voting day, Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021, due to the large amounts of people that may enter the building. MPL is a polling location. The library offered limited services in November 2020 based on the safety concerns with COVID and gathering. Limited services would include the cafe open at 7 a.m., lobby services, library cards and renewals, pickup of holds and various materials set out on display, drive-up, window pickup, staff available in person at support services desk and by phone from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m., but there will be no programming that day, and Teen Space is canceled due to no school. So with that, can one of the trustees call that up for a motion? As I read it.
I so move, as you read.
Thank you. It's a long motion. Can I have a second?
Well, I was gonna just ask, like, just to make it official, because I know Julie
Sure.
can't really make a motion, if I'm not mistaken, but it's a good suggestion.
Sure.
So would you then ask trustee Curry if he could make it a motion, just so it, Tom, do you back that up? Like, if
Sure.
he could make it an actual motion from a trustee?
Yeah, through the chair, he can incorporate the language from the agenda in the motion. if
Sure, I
that's
just
his
wanted to
intention.
clarify with Tom, since he's the lawyer here.
So
Thank you.
through the chair, is that your intention, Member
Yes,
Chair
I-
Curry, to
I figured I'd make
include
that
the
motion.
language? Okay.
Thank
As
you.
stated in the
As
packet.
stated in the packet.
Okay,
Thank
all right.
you.
I thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All
My
right.
lungs aren't as good as yours.
Oh,
You
thanks.
read the whole thing in one breath.
Allegedly. I am in communications. Okay, do I have any discussion now that we have a second? Nope, seeing none. Trustee Bartlett, can you call roll call?
Trustee Wood,
Yes.
trustee Yu,
Yes.
trustee Bartlett votes yes, trustee Chair Curry,
Yes.
trustee Dooley,
Yes,
trustee Mitchner.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
thank you. Thanks, Julie. Second on matters for library board action is about the Juneteenth holiday that was recommended by Finance Committee. So trustee Bartlett, since you're chair of Finance Committee, could you please lead us?
Sure. We had some long discussions about the Juneteenth holiday. There's a item in your packet where we would be adding an 11th paid holiday for all library employees, salaried, hourly, professional. Part-time employees, of course, will accrue holiday hours per current policies, just like any other holiday. This would be replacing one PTO, which is an optional day that not everybody takes. So they would be getting an 11th day that's an automatic paid holiday. We would also move the Veterans Day holiday to a floating holiday for the entire year. This would be a floating holiday that the employee, on the employee's discretion, can say, I want it, moved because, for religious reasons, for, personal reasons, whatever matter. I've given, in the package, you'll see a couple of examples of, areas where this would benefit, the employee. If they want to extend a holiday for 2 days, they can go and they can do that by, checking out with their, by saying, I want to float this holiday and have an extra day. So it would give them a very, a very large amount of flexibility. When we actually put this together, and then we went to the session with Dr. Marks. Dr. Marks, for those that weren't in these sessions, his sessions were really rather amazing. They were, rather than sitting there listening to a bunch of overheads or, death by PowerPoint or whatever you want to call it, everything was interactive. Everything, it was like doing an entire class in a lab. And if anybody's ever taught any professional seminar, that's the toughest way to teach. And the guy did an amazing job, really, because again, everything was done in a lab so essentially everything is ad hoc. You're taking everything from your clients. And one of the more interesting examples he had is he had us all do a social identity profile where he took what he considered 9 areas, it's a little bit more, I think it's about 10, 12 areas where people socially identify and people can be discriminated against. It included gender, sex, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, social class, age, disability, nation of origin or citizenship, tribal affiliation, body size. All these areas were things that, people can, and he asked everybody to say, okay, what do you consider yourself? And then you had to go through each of those items and say, okay, when you think of yourself, what are you most aware of? Because not everybody's going to say, geez, I'm a few pounds overweight or anything like that. They don't think that way. They may say, they may not even think that they're, think of themselves by their religion first and so forth. What do you identify as? And then the second column was, what do you think about the least? of these things that, the groups that you're involved in, what really do you, not care about? And then how do you think other people view you as, all these identities? And I believe this proposal basically says, we take that first column of what that person is most aware of, what that person is most concerned of, and they can make their own holiday. They can say, if they want to say, okay, my religion is my most important thing, and we basically only focus on Christian religion, we can move that. If it's their ethnicity, they can move that. If it's that if it's their sexual orientation and they want to go to a pride event, they can move that. So I think, what I'm proposing and what I'm going to make a motion on is we take this as a basis, we send it to the policy committee, basically involving personal leave time, holidays, and closures, and put this into a proposal, for the board to vote on. That's what my motion is.
So clarify one more time
Clarify.
what your exact motion is.
My exact motion is, we make Juneteenth our 11th holiday. It is got a option where the employee, at the employee's choice, can make it a floating holiday any time in the year. At the same time, we move Veterans Day, which is right now a floating holiday only for November, to a floating holiday any time of the year. So there's two. And that be basically put in as part of our, that basically be integrated with our policies for vacation time, closures, and PTO. And it would replace, the holiday replaces one PTO time. So you'd have, each employee would get 3 PTOs for the first half of the year because they are based on a half-year basis. They don't have the flexibility that we're giving to these holidays, which is making it year-round. So you have 3 PTO days for the first half of the year, 2 for the second, and you're going to get 2 holidays usable all year round.
Okay, because I also heard you say you want to throw it to policy, and I don't know how we're going to vote on it again if this is your
Well,
motion.
basically this is a holiday closure PTO proposal.
Okay,
All three of those library policies have to be modified to include this.
okay.
So that's why, this is kind of like a first reading, but it has to be integrated with these other parts of the library.
So, may I suggest, if you're amenable, that your motion is not changing the policy, but motion to discussion? Because it sounds like you're still going to be moving it.
My motion is to enable the policy committees to embed this into those 3 policies
Okay.
and bring it back to the board as a proposal.
Okay, so we're not voting on this just yet. We
We're-
want to vote on getting this to policy.
Right, we're voting on the concept going to policy. correct?
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to. Thank you,
Exactly,
Trustee
exactly.
Bartlett.
That's what we're voting on.
All right. So as I hear it, what we're voting on and what the motion on the floor is that the current proposal that's in our packet regarding Juneteenth is moving, the motion is to move it forward to policy.
Well, policy and I guess one of these is a HR policy.
They're both policy groups. It's
Okay.
HR and it's the building policy.
So we're only voting on moving it to the other committees tonight.
Right.
That's what I want to clarify for everybody.
With this concept.
Yeah, the provisions that we would bring forward from those because I'm not comfortable, and I don't want to speak for any board members, but I think you need things in writing to see what that means in terms of the policies that you currently have and how
That's
they would
correct.
change.
That's correct. That's why I like this clarification, so thank you. Do I have a second on this particular motion?
I'll second.
All right. Now I'm going to open it up for discussion. So the motion on the table that we have a second for is talking about the Juneteenth holiday policy for discussion in the other committees to come up with a proposal to bring forward for formal vote. Yes.
Okay. I have
Trustee Mishner.
Thank you so much. I have
welcome.
discussion. Okay, so first, I noticed that it's into financial committee, but there's no financial information anywhere here. I know it was already given to policy to look at from a policy perspective, and I believe we did that. We even said, like, let's take DEI out of it and look at it strictly from policy. We were trying to make sure that we were being above board in that regard, even when it was mentioned about finance. Trustee Wood said, nope, let's focus on policy, which I appreciate. In this regard, I don't see anything about finance. I don't see anything that speaks to the financial committee at all. There's no numbers at all. Whenever I see a finance report, I expect numbers. So, like, there's things that are really important from a finance perspective. If you're working from a finance perspective, which you should be if it's finance committee, which is what does a paid holiday cost and those types of things. It seems more like an HR policy proposal. But here's what I'm going to do. I would actually like to make a motion to amend the motion on the table, and I'd like that to read. I'd like that to strike the wording "an optional PTO day" will be converted to "and." Take that out. All right, we're going to take out in my motion an optional PTO day that will be converted to "and." That should go. Also, 2 and 3 on here should go, and I would leave it at an 11 paid holiday for all library employees, salaried and hourly personnel. Part-time employees will accrue holiday time per current employment policies as with other holidays. And then skip down to 4. This proposal will not affect the library's observed closures for holidays. The library will remain closed in observance of Juneteenth and the 19th of June and open on November 11th. Personnel is empowered to act with their discretion to be sure a base level of service is maintained on November 11th if required. That is my motion. Side notes in parentheses, this has been dragged out a lot. It's painful. I said independence. If we're looking at July 4th as Independence Day, I don't see all these extra little asterisks and bullet points and just because this, and then you don't really have to celebrate independence, you just celebrate something else. That demeans the African-American people who also are Americans, who also would like to celebrate independence. That's the whole point in it. American soil, American soil. Those 2 holidays represent independence in America. It is now a federal holiday by our president. So I'm looking at it in that way. I think we've done a lot of asterisking, and you're not quite as good, but, we'll put this bullet point here. Let's just look at it independence, please. So that is my motion that I put on the table to amend.
Okay, so right now, because I want to make sure we're all clear, we have a motion on the table currently to bring forth this proposal into committee, and that was seconded. But now we have an amended motion on the table from Trustee Mishner that is actually taking the proposal with revisions that she outlined into a new motion to approve an 11th holiday outright. Is that correct?
Today.
Today.
Vote on it today. This can't
Okay.
continue to be dragged out. It's very painful for many community members.
Point of parliamentary inquiry?
Yeah, I was going to ask Tom.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Tom, I just want to make sure. So we have a motion and a second and an amended motion.
You have a proposed amendment.
Proposed amendment.
To the motion that is on the
So now the original maker of the motion. Okay.
floor. What happens now, sorry, I didn't mean to
Make
cut
sure
you
your
off.
mic is on.
Didn't mean to cut you off there.
Okay.
So someone would need to second Trustee Mitchner's motion to amend the original motion,
Okay.
and then there would be a vote on that. So you call for a second, see if anybody supports Trustee Mitchner's proposed amendment,
Okay.
and then we'll see how that goes.
Okay. Okay. So I want to make sure everyone's clear with where we're at before I call the second. That's why I wanted to be sure. Because I like to be specific with language. So, yes.
So, another point of parliamentary inquiry. The original motion is a motion to commit to committee, right?
Yep.
And is the amendment changing that, what we're committing to committee? Is it just editing the text, or is it a,
It is through the chair, it's a proposal just to amend the motion, to not refer it anywhere and just
To approve.
as Trustee Mitchner read it. So it's permitted, and see whether there's a second and debate
Okay.
that and vote on that and see what happens.
Thank you. So with that, do I have a second from this board tonight? Second. Okay, so trustee, you second the amended motion. And I'm going to open that up for discussion now with the amended motion. Who would like to go first? Nobody? I don't like to go first.
Okay.
Because I'm president today, so I'd rather give you guys the shot.
yeah. I'll simply say that I think we've gotten in trouble when we've tried to create policy on the fly at the board. So I prefer whatever the language is passed, be committed to committee so it can go back to as actionable policies we can vote on. Thank you.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm sorry, Trustee Missioner, just one moment. I think I saw Trustee Bartlett's hand. Trustee Bartlett?
Yes, the optional PTO converting to the 11th paid holiday essentially made the finance negligible. That's why there was no information there. That's why there's no information there. It's essentially if you have 100% of the PTO versus 100% of the holidays, which you currently don't have, you essentially save money there. That's where the budget money comes from. So there is a financial component to this. I look at, again, what we stated in here as far as the religious, holidays, how individuals view themselves, and then we go back to federal holidays. Well, if you're going to use the federal holiday rule, we've got to cut some holidays because we've got to cut Easter, we've got to cut Christmas Eve. Because the federal policy for religious holidays, and I did look it up. This is the federal policy for religious holidays. Federal employees are permitted to modify their work schedules to accommodate religious observances that require one to abstain from work during regular working hours. Common examples of this are Jewish employees taking off for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, or Muslim employees taking off work for Eid al-Fitr. When an employee takes off work for a religious observance, they are required to make up the time or take personal leave. The hours worked in lieu of regular working schedule may not entitle the employee to premium pay for working on a weekend or working overtime. Employees are required to provide a written request for schedule adjustment. The request must state the scheduled adjustment is for a religious holiday, for what they will get, for which they will get leave. And so essentially what the federal government is saying is that you have to, and then there's a note in here that says that Christmas is the only exception, and it has been argued that it should be gotten rid of, but that is not on the table for now. Right now, our employees get Christmas Eve, Christmas, and Easter. I think I think reaching out and extending to as many folks in a affected group is a positive thing. But that's my opinion. And so and this will again if June, this will allow you to take Juneteenth. It sets it up as the default. But it does allow the employee to use at their own discretion for what they believe they personally identify as. And so, that's where I stand on the motion.
Thank you, Trustee Bartlett. Trustee Missioner.
Thank
have
you.
the
And
floor.
oh, so sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Appreciate it.
Is
And
your
I,
mic on? I'm sorry.
yes.
Okay, good.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the clarification in regards to religious holidays. I want to be clear, and this is why I say independence, independence, American soil, American soil. There's no difference between Juneteenth and July 4th to many Americans. It's an American holiday. This is not a religious holiday. I would definitely, if you wanted to bring forth taking away Christmas or something like that, I'd definitely entertain listening to you and considering what you have to share. That is not what we're doing today. Today, I'm talking about an issue that I've talked about since June of 2020. So even when Trustee Chair Curry said that, oh, this is on the fly, it made me chuckle a little bit because it's not on the fly. I've actually been enduring this pain for over a year as a Black American who actually has ancestors who were not free when people on July 4th were. So independence, independence, American soil, American soil. We cannot compare this holiday in particular, if we're being fair, we cannot compare this holiday to any other holiday than July 4th. It is a great comparison in many ways. So if you are considering, and I will consider it, if you're considering bringing July 4th to the table and saying you want to add a whole bunch of asterisks and bullet points and saying you don't have to really celebrate independence on July 4th, you can celebrate something else, that's interesting, but I'd hear you. I do take note that for whatever reason, Juneteenth is being deducted down. It is a federal holiday, yes, but we're talking about independence. It is not a religious holiday at all. Religion is not something that I've brought up. The only holiday you can compare this to in America is July 4th when it comes to independence, because you have Americans who were enslaved in this country that were not free, and then on Juneteenth they became free. Our country is starting to see that this was not right, and that it should be a federal holiday. That was not my, I didn't make that happen. I would have loved to have part in that, but I didn't. But it is now. So I think it's really important that we take the motion for what it is, and we don't throw in a whole bunch of other asterisks and bullet points and side deals and things of that nature, because I think it dilutes what it actually is. It is an American holiday. We are Americans. We built America. We helped build for free. We were enslaved, and we helped build America. So to act as though we are not true citizens by demeaning our independence is an issue for me. Again, I've been talking about this for over a year, and I love that the president noticed, hey, this is important before we did. But I would love for us to catch up to that. So let's please not change it to Christmas or Easter. I'm not proposing we take those off the table. If you are, again, I'd love to hear it. This is not on the fly. Come on. If we've watched any board meetings, we've talked about Juneteenth almost every month. I was not the one that referred this to finance or policy. That was Trustee Crawford who asked for that to happen. But since we're talking about it again, I say we have a motion. We understand, we vote again, and we're really honest about how we feel about this holiday.
Trustee Sherkirk.
Two questions. One, I just want to make sure I've asked two things. When the original motion is a motion to commit, can the purpose of the motion be amended? Not the language, but the purpose. That's the parliamentary question I have. It's a motion to commit something to a committee. And along with that, is there a way that we can get a copy of the proposed amended language so we can actually read it once? Because right now, I appreciate Trustee Mitchell said about, but we're going to be relying on Barbara to transcribe oral text to let us know what we passed. And I don't feel that that's a responsible way for me to vote.
So two things through the chair. So the item on the agenda is just a general discussion of Juneteenth. So I think, the original motion from Trustee Bartlett is fine. But I think it also can be amended with the motion that's.
But can a motion to commit be amended into a motion to?
There's a motion to refer to.
A motion to refer to committee.
Yes, it
be
can.
converted entirely into a motion to create legislation.
Yeah. And I guess sort of to answer
without.
this, that's how the motion. That's how amendment to a motion on the floor works. Yes.
Okay.
So. The second question, I guess, is a tougher one to answer, because if the board members don't really understand what they're being asked to vote on, because they don't have the language in front of them, that's something they take into consideration when they vote on the proposed motion to amend the main motion. So, the chair, you can go through, take the time and restate again to make sure everybody understands what the motion is, or you can call for the question once the discussion's done.
Sure. Trustee Mishner, before you go, would it be okay if I go?
Please do. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Trustee.
Yes. One thing that I wanted to note and to clarify is that both motions are not in front of us fully in text. Okay? So I understand your point. Good point. And I appreciate the Finance Committee for working on this and bringing this forward to the board for discourse. But if we're going to talk about the verbiage being in front of us to study and understand, both motions are not in front of us in totality to be able to vote, by what I'm hearing from you, if that's correct.
Well, I would, if I could answer. Agreed, but the motion as proposed by Trustee Bartlett doesn't actually change our policies or our bylaws. It simply refers this kind of working document to the Policy and HR Committee to create policies we would then vote on.
Understood.
The amendment by Trustee Mitchner appears, as I understand it, she wants to change our actual policies with an affirmative vote immediately.
Ideally, yes.
Yeah, so,
That's what she
so they are a little
technically is.
different that way. So
Okay.
you're right, we have not seen final language, but we're actually not voting to change our policies. We're voting to send a finance document to other committees.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Trustee Mishner.
I can say it really concisely. I can just say I amend this motion to make Juneteenth a paid holiday without exceptions, just like July 4th. But I noted some of the things in here that I thought were important. It talked about paid holiday for all library employees, salaried and hourly personnel. Part-time employees will accrue holiday time per current employment policies as with other holidays. Striking out 2 and 3. And then 4, saying this proposal will not affect the library's observed closure for holidays, et cetera. It's all there in, it is in writing. You just take out 2 and 3, and that is, there's no page number on here. Oh, yes, it is. It's in the staple part. Page 124, if you want to have that in writing in front of you, sir, but,
Make sure you speak through the chair.
but page 124 is actually where you would find that. But again, this is a policy I've been making for well over a year. There's people that were not born when I originally made this policy, so, or this motion. So this isn't something new. I think we've had lots of time to think about this. It's been switched to a lot of different committees and talked about and talked around. So I definitely did not do this flippantly. I want to be really clear on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I do have added comment for board discussion, if it pleases the rest of my trustees. So the thing about Juneteenth, there's a couple things about it. What has been brought forth to us today in terms of the original motion, I know right now we're talking about the amended motion, but one of my concerns is going back to the original motion. Am I still allowed to discuss that, Tom? Or do I
Sure,
have to just
yeah.
discuss
No, you
this
can discuss
amended?
both.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure I'm on the up and up with that. I want to know, was staff surveyed? Because the original, discussion when we were, reading this over as trustees, it is affecting personal time with regards to our staff. And that was something that I was wondering was, did we actually survey our staff? Because we have not. So Director Farkas is confirming that we have not. Because the thing is we just had an in-service day with our whole staff, and they are incredibly passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And the thing about Juneteenth is, I know fiscally, I know that people want equality when it comes to the budget. But this is an equity issue that requires investment. This is not something that we necessarily, even though I totally understand that you want to be budget neutral on, this is actually an equity issue that we just learned about for some of us that needs to be invested in. And this is something that people have been asking, including myself as a supporter of it, for quite a while. Another concern that I have is from a financial perspective. If we're talking about budget neutrality, I don't see what the costs are, because the thing is when you look at salaried staff, whatever paid holiday is, from my understanding, it does not affect them whatsoever, because when you're salary, you get that time off. Where this is probably going to affect the staff the most is the hourly full-timers, whether it be, if I'm not mistaken, or am I mistaken? I'm sorry.
It's part-time.
It's going to be affecting part-time?
Yes, correct.
Okay, because, so if you're an hourly full-timer, do we have that? Do we have staff? We don't. Okay, so that's another thing. We need to clarify the different levels of employment. We need to clarify the different levels of employment. And even though, I'd rather us not talk and attribute finance and numbers to a holiday such as this, that discussion aside, I totally understand the validity and I respect it. Therefore, we need those financial numbers so we know what you're talking about when you're saying budget neutral. That needs to be transparent to the public. That's just super important to me. The thing is if this holiday is not signified by people as something of value to be invested in order to have equity, that's something we have to talk about and consider. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about that. But when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, in order to make it equitable, you have to invest. Therefore, treating this holiday as a paid holiday, as the amended motion is suggesting, is appropriate and correct, and I will be in support of that tonight. So, that's my comments, and I want to open the floor to any other trustees. Trustee, you go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee Dooley. So I will also be supporting the motion that Trustee Mishner did put on the table. As was mentioned, that this has been on the table for a while. I mean, it's for over a year now, and we do know the intent of what we are getting ourselves into. Like Trustee Dooley mentioned, three of us attended the staff in service, and we saw how committed our staff is to these DEI initiatives. And this is something that we need. This is what we've been asked for by everyone that's been coming to our meetings and the greater community as a whole. And a lot of these in-service and trainings that we've been a part of have also told us that as trustees, our job is to listen to the community and what they're asking. We need to act on that and try and do everything we can to work on and approving those requests that they're asking. So that is why I am supporting the motion.
Is there any further comment or discussion before we do a roll call on the amended motion?
Just a really quick note that I did read Robert's rules before I brought this here, so it was noted that, like, where did this come from? I did research.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Mishner.
Yep.
Trustee Wood, you have no comment, right? Okay. If there's no further discussion on the amended motion.
Can we,
And just to clarify.
could we have the motion just for myself? I'm sorry. I
Yes,
just want to make sure.
That's what
Yeah.
I wanted to get to.
Thank you.
If Trustee
I appreciate
Mishner's okay with that, I was going to reiterate the motion.
You can
before we
reiterate
vote.
it.
Okay. So to reiterate the motion, the amended motion that's on the table, it's to add Juneteenth as a paid holiday, like July 4th, with the provision in terms of the language that's currently in the packet, that it be stricken from item 1, that it's considered an optional PTO day. It's just going to be a paid holiday in totality. That items number 2 and number 3 are stricken. But we do keep number 4, which is the proposal will not affect the library's observed closures for holidays, and the library will remain closed in observance of Juneteenth on the 19th of June and open on November 11th. Personnel is empowered to act with their discretion to be sure a base level of service is maintained on November 11th if required. So this also means, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Veterans Day is still considered the floater.
And only for, and
Item 2 was struck, which means that it's just a floater for November, which is what it is.
Okay, thank you,
right,
Trustee
so it just
Bartlett.
stays for November. That's why I was
Just
looking
stays
for
November.
clarification.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you,
Thank you.
Trustee Bartlett. Does
Thank
that
you.
help, Julie?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, good.
So I'm adding if you don't mind me clarifying.
Yes, go ahead. You're the maker of the motion, so yes.
Yeah, thank you. So it's an additional holiday, like it's the 11th holiday.
It is the
right?
11th
Okay, So just
holiday.
to clarify, I'm not taking.
I wanted
any-
to make sure that I said that correctly.
Yeah, I don't want to
Okay.
take anything away from the employees. I want to add.
Thank you, Trustee Mishner. Trustee Shirakuri.
And to clarify, within the amended motion, from the word scenarios downward is all struck?
Well, scenarios only, it means, this is a selling point for the upper portion. It's not
I'm
part
just
of
saying, yeah, the amendment has to strike, I mean,
Yeah.
we're converting a motion to.
So
refer to
Trustee
a motion to
Trustee
change.
Mishner, Trustee Shirakuri. Out of specificity, Trustee Mishner, are you in agreement with your motion to strike the scenarios from the verbiage?
Sure. The motion I made is the motion I made. The scenarios don't take place in my amended motion.
Okay.
I mean, I think those are just examples anyway,
They
quite
are.
frankly. I
Trustee
don't think
Bartlett
they're part of the
clarified, but
motion.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure.
But I'm just saying, a motion has to be converted, sorry, Chair.
Yeah.
A motion has to be converted into policy, right? Once we pass it, it becomes our policies. This language has to go somewhere.
These are just examples.
Those are just examples.
This is examples of employee options.
They are not part of the
Yeah.
policy.
I will then change the policy, the holiday policy will then be changed to have Juneteenth as a paid holiday. It will be recognized as that. And November, Veterans Day, we are open, but the month of November, the employees have a floating holiday to use in observance of Veterans Day in the month of November.
Thank you, Julie, yes, that's correct.
I would just like, again, it's just about problematic language. It says one or both in B, it says holidays plural in C. And also, one thing was brought up, it was asked whether or not we surveyed our employees about this change.
Yes.
We did not, but we did ask the director how this would generally be received, having an additional floating holiday, and we were told it would be received as a positive, because it gave more flexibility than before.
It does give flexibility as an option.
Yeah, so it's not that we didn't think about it, we,
Yes,
yeah.
but the staff was not surveyed.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you, trustee Sherkuri. All right, so is everyone clear on the amended motion? And so you know what we're voting on?
So the scenarios are staying in?
They're not staying
Those are
in.
examples.
They weren't part of
That's not even part of the motion.
I mean,
It wasn't included.
so then she has to strike. The motion is to amend his motion right now, right?
Trustee Mishner,
And that's the first four items, those are the first four items with motion.
I thought the original motion was to send this whole thing to the
No, the
policy
first,
committee.
but the first
Okay.
four items are the actual.
okay, point of order, order. Point of order. Trustee Mishner, are you willing to amend your motion to strike that language, just to make sure it's covered?
These are examples. That doesn't, I think what we're trying to clarify is that isn't.
I just want to be 100%
It's-
clear if we're having issue right now.
the scenarios, down from scenarios was not part of the original.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, let's do our roll call vote now, please.
Trustee Yu,
Yes.
trustee Bartlett votes no, trustee Cherukuri,
No.
trustee Dooley,
Yes.
trustee Mitchner,
Yes.
trustee Wood.
No.
Motion fails 3-3.
Okay,
now you
so
vote?
now we have to go back to the original motion.
Correct.
Which is, all right, now we have to go back to the original motion, which is to bring forth what was proposed here into policy,
Correct. To
Policy
send it, to
committee.
send it to the policy committee.
to send it to the policy committee, to bring back to the board.
To bring back to the board adjusted policies.
Okay.
Based on this scenario.
Trustee
Based on this document.
Trustee Sherkuri noted committees, plural. Let's specify again which committees, please.
Because there's a, oh, sorry. May I?
Yes, you
Yeah,
have the floor.
just that my understanding is there are actually two policy committees. There's the policy committee and the HR policies committees. So this may will actually kind of bifurcate as it goes there. Certain policies are done by the HR policy committee.
Okay.
That's my understanding, but I'll defer.
It'll affect, there's two different committees, HR and building policy because of holiday, and closure, and just making sure that you'll have everything back. And then HR policy.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the motion on the floor, again, to reiterate, and I'm sorry that I keep repeating, but we have to be really clear when it comes to this, is that we're taking what's proposed and bringing it into policy committee and HR committee, and there was a second. And we still have discussion, so trustee Mishner.
Thank you so much. I think we should all be honest with ourselves in regards to this. We didn't come to a consensus in policy. We were definitely not in agreement. You probably know where I landed. If it's brought back to policy, I mean, trustee Bartlett, you were there as well. So I think we know that whatever my consensus is probably won't be taken into account, but I still will use my voice as an appointed trustee. I do think that before we consider anything, if this is finance committee, I would like you to do financial work. We have to take our jobs and our assignments seriously. Everybody gets a vote, and that's fair. Everybody gets one vote, and I think that we did that, and that's the rules. That's how it goes. That's what we were appointed to do. Your voice is important. However, if it's a financial committee, I want to see those numbers. I don't want to hear hyperbole. I don't want to hear, oh, this is the reason why I think this is fair. Your job is finance. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, so I hope it's not coming across that way. But when we're talking about finance, I want to see numbers. I want to know money, because that was the whole thing. Well, I've heard lots of reasons why Juneteenth is not okay in the last year. I've heard that it's not a real holiday. I've heard that, what about everybody else? What about other people? Everybody doesn't get a holiday. I've heard, what about religious holidays? I've heard it's too expensive. I've heard a lot of things, but if it's too expensive, I need to see how so. And I think our public deserves the right to see how so as well. So I reject the idea of it being sent back to us. We did have the policy work, and we didn't agree, which is our right as a committee. Everybody was passionate and said what they felt, and, I think that works. But I think finance has an obligation here to show us some numbers, to show us the money, to quote Jerry Maguire, right? So that's what I would ask, please.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the trustees also have comment before I go? Yes, Trustee Bartlett.
When this came to finance, I felt, and I still feel, and essentially everything says that this is a DEI policy. This is a DEI issue. And by coming to finance saying, pay for this, that's what happens if, for example, this motion passes, which says the board says, this is our priority, pay for this. It's my job as a finance person to say, okay, figure out how do I pay for this, how I move things around and so forth. It is not anybody saying, this is my policy. If that policy was voted on and said, and it was passed, it's my job to pay for it. If it comes to me saying, here's something that we're looking at, it's my job to say, okay, where can I do this within the current budget? Which is what I did in this case. I listened to people, absolutely come after the finance committee. This is a policy that did not belong in the finance committee. But after saying that 2 or 3 times, I said, okay, we'll do the best job we can, which is what this is. And so, yes, if the motion that we just voted on passed, and you said find a way to pay for it, that's what I'd have to do, because that's what the job of finance is. But to sit back and say, well, geez, it's your job to tell me why I can't do it. That's, we've had one numbers of, how many employees are affected and so forth, and where that comes approximately, and that doesn't seem to be enough. If you send something to me and say, this is the will of the board, pay for it, that's my job. But to sit back and say, okay, we have to keep throwing this at finance, this is a DEI initiative, this is an initiative that goes to other places. And if you want to completely, tell me that it's my job and my responsibility, I'm going to say, hey, I think we did a good job here. But that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Bartlett. What I would like to add is that it's not just you. You're on a committee and you're chair, so I don't want you to feel completely responsible. But I do appreciate that you had this discussion. The biggest thing is, and you just brought this up, is who does this financially affect? How does it affect our budget? We still don't have that full education of how many staff it affects, what it actually costs. If we're going to claim that we want to try to keep this budget neutral, we need to have all of that in front of us. And I don't know if that comes from finance or if in policy or HR, those questions are asked so that staff has time to accumulate that data, but we don't have that data. It hasn't been in front of us clear as day, and that's something that we need. I'm not requiring staff at this moment to do it because this is committees that need to talk about it. But I can. I'm not sure how we're going to have the budget neutrality discussion surrounding this holiday when we don't see how much it costs and who it affects. That's my question with that. So whether it's in finance, whether it's in policy, whether it's in HR, I really think that we need to see the numbers and the public needs to see the numbers if we're going to have that discussion. So my ask is, since you're the original maker of the motion, Trustee Bartlett, is because we still need that number and we need that financial data, would you be amenable to amend your motion to also include Finance Committee again? Because we do need that research.
And so I would be making the motion that this does still go to policy and HR, and we provide the numbers.
We,
What you're asking me to do.
if we're gonna have this discussion again, yeah, we need to have that data and we need to have the
Okay.
numbers. Are you
Yeah.
amenable to that?
Yes, we'll provide you the numbers, but this policy, as it is written, goes to the policy group, and, the HR group. And again, this is, like me as a finance person, the big difference is as me as a finance person, if the board says, pay for this, my job is to pay for the same. Here's the options of not paying for this. When this goes to policy, it's not policy's decision, we don't like this.
Sure.
The policy group has to say, we have to take this and make it work.
Understood. I understand your
So
logic.
as long as we understand that, I'm perfectly amenable to that. I'm perfectly amenable to that.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Bartlett. I think the seconder of the motion also has to agree to that. Yes, Tom, sorry.
So, I guess I just want to make sure everybody understands.
Yes, thanks, Tom.
So the motion was to refer this to the two policy committees to bring it back, or for them to put it in writing, essentially, in their policies.
Sure.
Bring those documents back to you for another motion, yes or no, up or down, you accept or don't accept. So is Finance Committee now under your proposal, Madam Chair?
Yes.
To meet, find the numbers, and then include those numbers with this language for those two other committees to?
Thanks for asking that question, Tom. So, yes, I think my logic is Finance Committee has to provide the data and the numbers so the other committees have that data in front of them to make the proposal. But also, the whole board needs it to paint the big picture of what they're saying when they're talking about budget neutrality. If that makes sense.
I'm just trying to figure out
Yeah.
through the chair, does Finance Committee meet first?
Yes.
Create the information to be shared, then it goes to the two policy committees, and then it all comes to you as a board.
Thank you for clarifying the workflow. Yes, that would actually be my hope. Does that make sense, Trustee Bartlett?
I'm not amenable to that,
Okay.
that motion. I'm not amenable to that motion.
Okay. So how would people get the data, is my question.
Well, what I was saying is that, we would include the data of what the costs were when we vote on the whole policy. So it goes to the policy committees, it goes to HR, and it comes to us.
But it affects the budget.
Really, this proposal as written has, because of the PTO versus, it's essentially negligible, because the budget, we are budgeted for days off that are not taken, so we get a surplus. Outside the budget, we get a surplus because employees don't take paid time off. Okay, they don't take all their paid time off.
Okay.
So we get a surplus, but we are budgeted for them to take the full amount. So this is within the budget
Okay.
by definition.
Okay.
So I mean, there's no real numbers to say, to say that you're outside the budget or you're budgeting more money.
That's been the discussion the whole long, perception-wise, though, this whole year. So I just want us to be super transparent and clear when it comes to these discussions. That's all. That's what I'm asking for. Yes, Trustee Shirakuri?
Yeah, and I'd just like to clarify, the discussion has partially been budgetary. It's partly been one of equity with our citizens. So one of the issues that also came up in this is that civil servants typically, in this day and age, get a benefit package that includes time off, paid time off, holidays, et cetera, that far exceeds that's provided in the private sector. So there were, and the thing I'd add to that is when we talk about budget, there's also the lost productivity, these things are not always showing up on balance sheets. But again, to second what trustee Bartlett has said, this is budget neutral. So, I mean, you can make 0 = 0, 1 = 1. I mean, how many times the finance committee can iterate that back, that's fine. I think if there's specific questions that they want prices on, it'd be helpful if all the trustees could submit that, and I think we can work with our finance team to figure those out. Thank you.
Okay. So right now, for clarification for staff, since this is a motion that's being discussed, yes, trustee Mishner, before I reiterate, yes, go ahead.
I appreciate it, thank you. The reason why I'm asking for numbers is because that's all I've heard. From the very beginning, when the 3 new board members came on, that was their whole purpose. They all said they respect the holiday. Even a quote that's on the top of my head is like, we respect the holiday, we have nothing against it, it's just the money, the money, the money. I heard a lot about budget. So I think that the issue is, it's interesting that now it's budget neutral. We're changing the dialogue, you know, that makes me, I guess I'm wondering how that works, now that it's budget neutral. Because if you even go back a few months, budget was the main issue. And that's why I'm saying we'll talk about the numbers. And I think that it was, if I'm not mistaken, Trustee Crawford referred it to finance and policy so we could look at it from the perspectives of our own committees. We looked at it from a policy committee standpoint. We did not see eye to eye. And again, that's okay. We don't have to see eye to eye. So that's why we came back with a split decision. From a finance perspective, you weren't given it for a policy purpose, right? You were given it for a finance purpose. I definitely understand what you're saying, Trustee Bartlett, in the sense of like, hey, if you tell me to pay it, I pay it. I totally get that. Mm-hmm. But what are we paying? Like, what are you see what I'm saying? Like, where are the numbers? I think it was given to you for that purpose, being given back to policy and HR, which is actually one person, which is the president. It just seems like it's ping-ponging, which actually creates more consternation. And when we say that we're committed, someone said that it was a DEI issue. Well, sure, okay, we can look at it from that perspective, but that it's one that we're not doing a great job of if that's the case, because it is taking a long time to actually settle the issue. So those are things I just want to throw out. But I would like to see numbers. I think that really helps to clarify. Since I was told, after I've made this motion so many times, that money is the issue. Now I'm hearing it's neutral.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes, Tom. Yep.
if I can, just in trying to keep the motion straight in my head.
Yep.
So right now, the motion on the table is to refer the proposal that the Finance Committee has come up with to these other 2 committees.
Mm-hmm.
Trustee Bartlett is saying that's revenue neutral because we're not adding a holiday, we're sort of changing things around.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still talking about finance numbers. Is the question that some of the members are asking is what it would cost for an actual additional paid holiday? Is that the number that you're looking for?
Yes.
To compare to, I think what the Finance Committee is saying is we came up with kind of a revenue budget neutral proposal, which people may or may not like, but is what you want to compare that to what it would cost to have a new paid holiday? Is that?
So it was referred to finance and it was referred to policy.
Sure.
My thought process, that was not my job or my goal to do that. That was the president's job.
Okay.
My thought, because so many people mentioned budget as an issue when it was turned down, is that was because finance was an issue. So I'm thinking that's why it was originally referred to finance. Otherwise, I don't understand why it would have been referred to finance in the first place. So I don't see how that's relevant to finance if they aren't crunching numbers to figure it out or looking at it from a financial perspective.
I
Does
think
that
what
clarify,
they're
Tom?
saying is they did, and with their proposal, it's budget neutral.
Is that what you got from what they
That's
said?
what I'm
We-
understanding.
Trustee Bartlett, go ahead.
When this was referred to finance, there was no doubt in my mind and in my communication that our job was to come up with a proposal. And then we came up with a comprehensive proposal. And I have not seen anybody from anybody else this was assigned to that came up with a comprehensive proposal. So as much as you can criticize us all you want, but we came up with a comprehensive proposal. And I still believe that from a standpoint of the individual employee, of what the employee gets out of this, of what the employee has a benefit of what the employee sees that they make out with this proposal, they are well. And I'm not, I guess I've always said in front of this board everywhere that I see holidays as inanimate objects. I don't see them as something that is respected or non-respected. That's my viewpoint. I gave the example of how I've always worked for companies outside this area. They all take President's Day off. I worked with the automotives. They all get Martin Luther King Day off. I was the only employee in those companies working on President's Day and taking Martin Luther King day off. Not because I respected the holiday, but because that's when my customers were working, and that's when I could maximize my commissions and my ability to make money, which is why we work and why we have holidays in the first place. And so I think this is, but I understand, but I again think this is a good proposal for employees. So.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Tom, do you have any other points of clarification? Okay. So, sorry, Barb, you have a lot of stuff right now. Here's the thing, the Finance Committee is proposing it. Thank you for working on it. You feel that it's positive towards the employees, but the employees' voice wasn't added to this in terms of survey. Also, it hasn't been brought into HR yet, and this is also an HR policy. So right now, the motion again is to take this proposal from Finance and move it towards HR policy and policy committee. Yes.
I'm willing to make an amendment to the motion that says we table it and ask for an employee survey.
Okay. And would the survey, may I ask, Trustee Bartlett, would the survey be what you have outlined here from Finance Committee?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Say, okay, you are going to, we're going to move to a holiday, and by the way, you're going to have 2 floating holidays that can be used any day of the year. Exactly as it's written here.
Exactly as it's written here.
Right.
Not asking if they would rather have Juneteenth as paid.
If they would prefer it the way it is, we can add that if you wish. I'd be amenable to that.
That we would add that they would prefer possibly that Juneteenth is an added paid holiday. Is that, I just want to be clear that you know what I'm asking.
To maybe vote on, is that what we're looking at? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, that's what I want to clarify too before you agree. Sorry, Trustee Bartlett.
No, I would say we take this proposal to an employee survey.
Okay, but also my question was to include the option of Juneteenth being an added paid holiday. I wasn't sure if you were clear on my request to add to the survey. Because if you're going to survey them, that should be an option, right, or no?
Are you removing a PTO day in that case?
I'm not recommending that, no.
No?
I get,
Yeah, Trustee Sherrill.
respectfully, Chair, I think if we start to try and put a multitude of options in front of the employees, that is not the correct way to make policy. Again, we did ask the director how she thought this would be received, so we did not do a survey, but we did not consider employees' interests. I think it's, as
Understood.
Trustee Bartlett said, if you'd like us to.
I just want to be clear.
Sure, Julie.
I was given this information and it read well in terms of an option. I would be happy to do a staff survey if that's what you want me to do, because I have not taken this information to actually my policy committee that might weigh in on this. That would
Right.
be worth doing.
That's what we're trying to do
Yes,
tonight.
so
yes.
Yeah,
so
I'm just-
I mean,
I just have a concern of putting a whole menu of items
right, but
in
I
front of
see
staff, because you'll get a
the
plurality.
thought, and it's like, okay, this is an option. You were bringing something back. This is your information. So
I just feel like when you put a multitude of items in front of our employees, and you get a plurality of opinions back, when you make your decision, by definition, you have gone against preferences of possibly the majority of the people.
I mean,
a
I'd
significant
like to
minority.
take a pulse of the committee that I work with, if that's an option.
The committee?
But I'm just, I'm
Yeah,
just saying, I'm just not in
my-
favor of taking a multitude of options out there.
My staff committee, I
Yeah.
can take a pulse of if how they feel about this. If that's something to do, I can do that.
So, with respect, thank you for that clarification, Trustee Sherrill Curry. The thing is, we keep debating about these two options, the option that's been put in front of us, but also the option to make Juneteenth as an added paid holiday. And I feel like if you negate that from the survey to get their staff opinion on it, especially since I witnessed that these initiatives are incredibly important to them if they fall under DEI, that's my concern. I don't think it's a multitude. You're basically going to be asking, do you want this policy that was presented by finance, or would you rather have Juneteenth as an added paid holiday? That would be my question, and that's two options as I see it today for the survey. Does that make sense? Am I wrong? And it's okay if I am.
No, it is just, basically it's taking the status quo with an extra holiday, rather than a PTO day. And then you lose the proposal. I mean, we've already had the amended motion,
Sure.
so,
Okay.
I guess at this point, I guess we vote on the original motion. I think we all know how that's gonna end.
I mean, I think from my perspective, just for my perspective for record, I just want that transparency to be met to the public. I want our staff opinion to be considered because technically the current proposal is taking a PTO day away from them. So I know you're adding some extra flexibility, but we're not taking into consideration that they're going to view it that way. And I think when it comes to, that's just, where I work, PTO is different. I don't get vacation days. I don't get PTO days and sick days. All my days are considered PTO.
Okay.
So I want to make sure we have that clarification for the public too. They don't even know how the actual benefit packages are structured. I don't think they knew that part, So that's my concern, is transparency. It has no criticism with how you did it, honestly, not from me, but it has everything to do with getting the transparency out into the public so we can have a really good, full discussion instead of going back and forth every single meeting, right? That's what I want. Yes, Trustee
I
Missioner.
appreciate that clarification so much, Trustee Dooley. And Trustee Bartlett, I'm sorry if it came across as I'm criticizing you. I'm not. I appreciate your thoughts. I really do. Even if I don't always agree with them, I do appreciate what you share. What I will say is exactly what Trustee Dooley said, is that you can, I'm the mental health professional here, but it can definitely build a resentment and have a counter effect if we're taking away or just trading off as opposed to giving something additional. The point was to say, this is a holiday, and, it's federal now as well, and we appreciate DEI efforts if we are putting it under the DEI umbrella, so here's an extra day for you as employees. I think it uplifts morale. I think there's a lot of reasons why staff would like an additional day. I think if we start playing a shell game, if you will, I think that makes it a little different and makes it really challenging for the employees, and I'm sure that if we're just changing things around, it might just be more complicated. So I will say, I think just an additional day is really the way to go if we're going to do it. I think changing things around and switching them around, acting like we did something that was great, or different even, it's not accurate, and that's where we tend to look performative, and that's the feedback I've heard in listening sessions. That's what I've heard from comments. So I think we just need to either approve the paid holiday, but not just keep playing around with it. But I wasn't trying to negate that you worked hard on this. I think that you seem very dedicated to your role. I just like numbers.
Okay, so we have to go back to the motion because staff is like, okay, where are we? And Tom probably needs that clarification. So I want to make sure the public knows that the motion on the table currently is the current proposal from finance be moved towards policy and HR policy. Nothing has been accepted at this time by the original maker of the motion to amend it with some of the discussion that we've had, and that's okay. So right now, without any further discussion, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote.
Okay, Member Bartlett votes yes. Member Cherukuri?
Yes.
Member Dooley?
Yes.
Member Mitchner?
No.
Member Wood?
Yes.
Member Yu?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, if it's okay, I can clarify with you, Julie. Typically, if the trustees have questions, we entertain those questions through the president to the committees. So if we want further clarification on any items, whether it be financial and the like, Tom, you can weigh in on this. We have the right to ask those things to be taken to committee. Is that correct? Okay. I want to make sure that that's on record for the public too, so that they understand how it works. Okay, thank you. All right. Now, thank you everybody for that discussion. I appreciate your time, and thank you staff and public. Thank you. Right now we have communications. It's all in your packet. So if you need to, review that again, please do for public record. We do not have any closed session tonight. So at this time, we've reached adjournment. So I'm asking for a motion to adjourn. Trustee Michener's moving to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Bartlett seconded. Roll call vote, please. Trustee Bartlett?
Trustee Cherukuri? Aye. Trustee Dooley?
Aye.
Trustee Mitchner?
Aye.
Trustee Wood?
Yes.
Trustee Yu?
Yes.
Trustee Bartlett votes yes. We're adjourned.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.